Hello, my name is Taflanidis, and I would like to first start by acknowledging my co-authors for this abstract, Aziza Zhang, Katerini Kiprioti, Tracy Kijewski Correa, and Andrew Kennedy. This presentation will discuss storm surge estimation using surrogate modeling techniques. So I'll start by motivating the problem. This is the information provided by the National Weather Service before a landfalling hurricane event, an expected track and some cone about the variability of the predictions, how the storm is expected to behave. Our goal is to help emergency response managers or even regional planners to make decisions by providing a fast and accurate tool to predict surge risk. So we have two objectives, both in terms of accuracy, but also in terms of speed. And for emergency managers, this could be during an actual landfalling event. For planners, it could be just to come and simulate a potential future substantial storm events that are going to impact their regions. Now, the good news in these objectives that we have is that we have high fidelity simulation models like AdCirc that can provide high accurate surge estimates, though unfortunately they have a significant computational burden. So we do satisfy the accuracy requirements, but we violate the speed. Also, these models require some degree of substantial competency to run them, which further reduces their utility within the setting that we are interested in. There do exist, though, regional flood studies that provide a database of synthetic storm simulations. They have simulated a large number of synthetic storms, considering different tracks, as you can see here at the bottom right, and also different storm characteristics. So we can exploit them to create fast surrogate models to predict surge. For those of you that are not familiar with the term surrogate models, they're simply mathematical approximations of the input-output relationship of a complex numerical model. They're exceptionally fast and they're data-driven, which means they need to be developed based on the database of input-output pairs, which we already know we have. A quick slide to show something of the fundamentals of the surrogate model that I'm specifically going to be using, which is Kriging. So Kriging approximates the real function as a combination of a Gaussian process and a global regression. There's going to be a one-dimensional simple illustration. The input X is one of the storm characteristics, and the output is actually the surge at a specific location. So we run some simulations and we obtain these estimates of the surge using our high fidelity models, and these are going to be our support points from the surrogate model. Then we perform some calibration of the surrogate model, and after the calibration, we have estimates for the mean predictions, but also we can quantify the uncertainty in those estimates. We can obtain this predictive variance. You can see it's exactly zero at the points where we do have our observations. Kriging is an interpolator and not a regressor, and then this variance becomes larger away from those points. It's exceptionally fast surrogate model, and also gives us this quantification of uncertainty that's explicitly is a function of the input and not a constant within the domain, something that we like in UQ applications for surrogate models. Now the question is how we're going to incorporate these techniques into our problem, the surge risk estimation. The implementation relies on a simplified parameterization of the storm tracks so that we end up with a low-dimensional input vector X. These are going to be generally the characteristics close to landfalls. The same assumption that's used by JPM OS for the past couple of decades in the field of hurricane risk assessment. Of course, the track is, prior to landfall is important, and for the synthetic storms, this is chosen based on regional characteristics. So this is our setting. We have a hurricane simulation database, and after we train our surrogate model, we can very efficiently provide predictions for any other storm that we want. The specific database we're going to be using is going to be in the North Atlantic Comprehensive Coastal Study that has 1,031 storms and was developed by the Army Corps of Engineers. Now, reasonable question that one is going to ask is, okay, how accurate can this surrogate model be? And it really depends on how exactly you're going to select the database of synthetic storms. And actually, what we call a design of simulation, design of experiments, a DOE in this field. And actually, an adaptive design of experiments can provide substantial benefits. What do I mean by adaptive here is that we're going to come and use our current surrogate model and especially its predictive variance to come and guide us where we should perform the next number of storm simulations. So evidently, if I want to, let's say if I have 3 simulations, I should put them in the domains here when I have high variance for the surrogate model predictions, and immediately you come and see that after I add these 3 new simulations, I end up a much better predictive mean, and also the variability in the prediction significantly decreases. And in the storm simulation setting, this is an example from one of our recent papers. You can see here the correlation coefficient, a measure of the accuracy as the number of the storms in the database increases. And if you do an adaptive selection of these storms, it comes to give you significant advantages as opposed to you randomly selecting what storm to simulate next. And for the North Atlantic Comprehensive Coastal Study database, we have separate surrogate models for the landfalling and the bypassing events. And you can see that in generally, we get a pretty high correlation coefficient, over 98 for the landfalling and over 96 for the bypassing. As we point out, that these statistics are estimated through cross-validation. So now that we have a surrogate model, what we can do if someone gives us a main track, this could be a landfalling event or just a what-if scenario to help us plan for the future. You can see that we can get, using the surrogate model, the predictions for the main track, but also we can come and consider the cone of uncertainty and additional the uncertainty, the surrogate model predictions, and we can calculate different probabilistic measures. So this is the surge with 50% probability of exceedance. I will point out that I'm focusing explicitly on the New Jersey state, but I can do something with a higher surge with lower exceedance probability. In this case, I'm plotting a 10% exceedance probability. And as soon as the storm moves and I want to make new predictions, so this is a scenario that, let's say, the storm maintained on the same track, but now we are 24 hours away from landfall, so the code of uncertainty has decreased. I can come very easily and update this prediction. In the next 2 slides, I will briefly discuss and provide some references on some technical implementation advances that have been done over the past decade. So for nodes that have remained dry for some time in the database, we need to do some data imputation to obtain what we select the pseudo search. This is necessary in order to be able to exploit the whole database for creating a surrogate model for the search. And you can view this as coming and correcting some, bad pixels in the storm surge picture that each storm provides. Another thing that we need to address is the high dimensionality of the output, especially since we're going to make predictions over a very big geographical domain with thousands or even million grid points. And there are 2 solutions to address this issue. The first one, to use processual component analysis for dimensionality reduction. This allows for a better calibration, a more accurate calibration of the surrogate model, and also to reduce the memory requirements. We can come and estimate statistics on a reduced grid and then project the results into the original grid. You see at the top this comparison of this implementation. At the left-hand side, this is the original grid. In this case, it's over around 700,000 points, and here we are estimating statistics on another 50,000 or 15,000 smartly selected points, and then we project on the original grid. You can see that you get very good accuracy, and this solution comes and gives you substantial memory reduction in the implementation. Another interesting extension is to explicitly use sea level rise as input into your surrogate model, and this is from the Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, a recent database that the Army Corps has developed. You can see that across the different sea level rise scenarios, you get a pretty good accuracy. And here we have the comparison, what happens if we develop a separate, this is the root mean square error, and we can see what happens when we develop a separate surrogate model for each sea level rise, or if we combine the sea level rise as an input and use a traditional calibration approach, or use an adjusted calibration that comes and explicitly considers that the fact that the sea level rise has a specialized impact on the output, which is, it offsets the response. You can see that you do need the adjusted calibration to come and maintain good accuracy. A final interesting extension is how we can do time series predictions. This is relatively straightforward. We just consider the different timestamps as separate outputs, and you go back into that principal component analysis multi-output case. Now, for the last presentation, I will talk about the Sabre implementation of these advances to create NG-Coast. NG-Coast incorporates dozens. It was developed especially for the New Jersey state, and it develops dozens of GIS layers with topographic issues, infrastructure elements, critical facilities, anything that the state had. And then it comes and superimposes a storm hazard projection tool using a surrogate model. So then user can come and provide a specific storm that they want to simulate, and then immediately the surrogate model comes and provides a map of what is the storm surge, and actually also the wave run up in that in the whole state of New Jersey. And then they can superimpose with the different geographical layers that they have, figure out how this storm is going to impact our critical facilities and everything else, and help them into their planning. Also, they can do what if scenarios, for example, go and run exactly the same storm by incorporating a future sea level rise and see how that impact changes. So overall, this it gives you a very nice visualization environment, and also a good collaborative environment where multiple people, this runs, it can easily run on an app. It's a Sabre implementation on the cloud where multiple people can come and annotate, and they can start discussing, looking at exactly the same storm surge simulation. So in this presentation, we'll focus on how surrogate models can offer a good tool for probabilistic fast hurricane risk assessment, and we saw how the Sabre implementation that the state of New Jersey provides planners and emergency response managers with invaluable tooling in their planning. I would like to acknowledge the funding agencies. A lot of this work has been supported over the years by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and recently by FEMA, and the NG-Coast implementation was supported by the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. And with that, thank you very much for your attention.